Kia, no mai, haere mai, and welcome to Lights, Camera, Kōrero. And what a treat in store this episode on the eve of the Vista Foundation 48-hour film competition for 2025. We have got 48-hour founder, filmmaker, and film head Ant Timpson joining us for a deep dive into 22 years of 48-hour, the impact on the Aotearoa film ecosystem, and has some top tips of how to make a winning film. Thanks for joining us. I really don't know how long I've known you, Ant Timpson, but it feels like at least 21 years. Does that sound about right to you?
It's very accurate.
Approximately 21 years, 3 months, 14 days. And I know that I first encountered you with the 48 Hours, but backing up the truck, you call yourself a film head. There is nothing, I think, when it comes to film that you haven't had something to do with in this country and beyond these shores. Producer, director, founder of 48 Hour. You just bloody love it, don't you?
Look, I don't think I can do anything else. So, Kate, you get lumped with what you got. So I would have loved to have gone the traditional path at times, but yeah, no, I was just film obsessed early age, so I was just lucky enough to dabble in a lot of areas. Yeah, I think I have quite a good broad knowledge of how a lot of the mechanics work, which, yeah, sometimes you get bogged down in one area or the other and have a blind spot, but I feel because I kind of randomly had a scattershot approach, I've got an okay understanding of how things work.
I get it, and I think you're underselling yourself hugely. You, Ant Timpson, are the founder, the propagator, the passion behind 48-hour film, and I think the first time that I did anything on this was when old days of 3 News, and I started covering the insanity of this, and on shoot weekend followed crews around, and that's when I got a full understanding of exactly that, the insanity of having to make a short film, to write it, to shoot it, to cut it, to survive it. That sounds like a great tagline.
That was our tagline for a long, long time, still is.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great hooks is the pressure of it all, and the fact that you end up with something at the end of it, which harks back to the whole idea of this, the genesis of it, where weekend films were what I tried to do with friends and my brother and cohorts, and we ended up, making these little mini splatter films and then showing them to really disinterested parties around the living room on Sunday or whatever. And some never made it across the finish line, just like 48 Hours. I have to admit up front, though, that this was something that was sort of kicking around internationally, and then I saw sort of popping up when I was in Austin. I used to do it back and forth in Austin from about 94 onwards.
How come?
I met Richard Linklater's PA and we hit it off, and so I spent a bit of time in Austin working out of Detour, and that's where The Incredibly Strange kind of got started, the film festival, when I was in Austin for that year, as well as doing a bit of research for my short film Crab Boy. And so Austin's been a really special place for me over the years, but I used to be good mates with the guy from the Alamo Draft House, and so we started like a lifelong friendship from that because he was such a showman. But in his theatre, basically every kind of cool new thing that was happening with sort of cinema and experiential cinema was popping up from the Alamo, the Draft House, and they had a limited time filmmaking event there, and I was like, wow, this is incredible! Like just the energy of the room and the people, like seeing their films alongside everyone else over a short period of time. I was like, I've got to steal this concept. All great ideas, and so brought it back and didn't have the sort of energy to create something completely from scratch, so we just did it. We incorporated it into the Incredibly Strange Film Festival.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that's the very first year. It was within the festival, just as a sidebar, and we had, I think it was 44 teams the very first year, and there was like, I think Taika was involved, Jackie Brown, Gerard Johnson, who did Megan too. So it's like it was, and Scribe was in a Western, I seem to remember.
Wow.
And it was just took us by surprise. Like we had to, I think, put on an extra screening session. The cinema itself, the lobby was the finish line.
Oh, that sounds insane.
For all these filmmakers to come running in on Sunday night, as we had other films playing in the festival. So it was a bit of a madhouse, but that kind of chaos I just thrived in. I loved that. And so I think that sort of energy drove it, for the first few years, and why it grew substantially, because people just really had a good time doing it all.
It sounds anarchic. It also sounds, I know, where it originated from, but it just sounds intrinsically like Kiwi.
It was. I mean, the number 8 wire, those pull things together. We sort of, the whole philosophy was like zero budget, even though in the early days we had some real pros tackle it. It's changed in terms of the entrance over the years, but in the early days there was a lot of production houses took part of it because it was a fun thing. They were just doing commercials, and they were bogged down in their day 9 to 5 sort of life, and the idea of cutting loose and not having a client tell you what to make and looking over your shoulder was just liberating for a lot of people, a lot of creatives. So we had it across the board. The demo was really from 60 down to 6, or 6 to 9, I think was our youngest entrant, who actually now owns a production company.
No.
His name's Calvin Singh, and he's got a phenomenal production company that a lot of now young talent are working for.
Well, part of the reason why we wanted to chat to you was exactly that, because you look at that and you feel all the tendrils and how much of the 48-hour DNA must be in so many creatives that have gone on to work in the industry, to thrive in it, and also to become a part of the backbone of the storytelling ecosystem in this country. It must feel pretty sweet sitting there. And do you often think that?
It does, but I'm going to do a shout out now to we couldn't survive without the Vista Foundation.
Oh no, of course, yeah.
And NZFC, because they're and this is not just to grease them up and blow smoke up the foundation's bum, but it is essential that, especially in this environment now, we are so dependent on those corporations and organisations that back the concept, and they back it for that single reason, that there is a highlighted pipeline that we've proven that works.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody, but there is so much talent that has come through, and the deep network of connective tissue amongst everyone who's taken part. The map of this thing, if you sort of went back and drew the family tree of 48 Hours, would be mind-boggling in terms of how much it's affected the landscape in a lot of ways. But even though it's still the crazy, chaotic, silly, fun event that happens over one weekend, the impact over the 2-decade plus time it's been involved has just been so rewarding to see, and I'm super proud of that aspect. And there's been a lot of people who have helped us along the way, and I've taken a sort of more of a back seat, a lazy Godfather style role. I was going to say, you're the Don. and left it up to Ruth and Ness, who are really the guts of the whole operation now. And they were participants, which a lot of people who end up working on the 48 were people who either, played it, entered for years and understood the concept of the whole thing and want to give back, or just love that they've met so many great sort of other people and formed relationships through the whole process. So, it's kind of just exists on its own ecosystem, but the tendrils that come out from it are really deep and strong.
Yeah, and from your perspective as well, it's the ultimate sign of success when you're able to, delegate's not really the word, but when you're able to gift it over and give it to people to do that, I think it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, and we haven't done any sort of big swing changes. We've stuck to the knitting of what the core concept of. There's always minor changes that have happened over the years, but it is pretty much fundamentally the same event that occurred way back in the day. And I feel financially we've had to change a few things just because it got harder. And, during COVID, we suddenly went to this online one, which was just a madhouse. We had incredible number of participants, but it was free. So, and that's probably a big clue to it. But, it's survived through all the sort of lulls of the industry, and it's just it's been a real sort of solid, new sort of emerging talent incubator over the years.
Incubator, what a great word. I just say I've been beamed in here from a galaxy far, far away, and I sat down with you and I'm going to say, what the hell is 48-Hour Film Festival? What is it?
Yeah. Okay. So it's a competition slash film festival slash workshop boot camp. It is a limited time filmmaking. So it's people coming together, forming this squad of creatives, and what it gives it a chance to people to try things that they've never done before. And when Taika Waititi, we asked him to give us a quote years ago about it. He just said it was just a great way to take away all the pressure of filmmaking and just play, which is like where background from a lot of people, like when you don't have that, huge weight of outside pressures to deliver, and you just get to have fun with friends. That is the heart of the whole thing, and sometimes genius comes out of that restrictions that we place on them. It's also a way, people talk about making things. I used to run this film shop with my brother, and we were constantly bombarded with people like, it was like clerks, right? So we were stuck behind the counter there, and we had every sort of wannabe filmmaker come in and just pitch their projects, and even though we couldn't do anything about it, but we just had to hear non-stop ideas of what they were going to do, but nothing ever came out of those conversations. 48 cuts through all that bullshit.
Doesn't
and
it?
you have to make it. Two things that we've always done and stuck by it, even though it might seem tough, is like pay the entrance fee. That sort of transaction that happens forces people to follow through. If we don't have that, Friday night, someone says, let's just go for a beer instead. I know a lot would drop out. Having that commitment forces people to go through with it. The reward is going to pay off, but at times you need to have those pressures on you. So that's really interesting. And then the other thing is the kind of oddball random elements we throw at them. If you say if we don't give them any boundaries, if we don't add these elements, sometimes it's a prop and sometimes it's a line of dialogue, or there's like a camera effect, or various things that we keep sort of changing throughout. And the big one of all, the genre of it, which we went down the rabbit hole of micro genres. I think we created a few new ones over the year. That sort of like those added layers to it really sort of focuses the writing of whatever they're going to do and kind of streamlines the process. Whereas if you give them a completely open canvas, they get stuck in those sort of wannabe discussions. Yeah. And it can just go endlessly, and they find it very hard to come up with a singular idea that they want to do. So these sort of added things might seem hard from the outside, but they actually do help focus people and get them started on the process, which is the Friday night. Yeah,
and to be clear, you have no idea what your genre is or what those added elements are until
that Friday, just before the Friday kickoff. Yeah.
Wow. So you really can't start writing until then. You could have all the ideas.
No, I mean, look, people, this whole AI thing is throwing a big curveball at us.
Interesting.
Yeah. So look, and generative AI, we're not. I'm speaking for everyone, but I'm not a fan of any of this, where this is all going. But, it's a tool. We've been using it in various software and apps, so, leading up to all this. So, but in terms of the writing, you could write scripts for every type of genre and have them sitting there. But what's the point? Like, the fun part of it is actually the brainstorming
doing it.
and working with others and coming up with these concepts and creative ideas are going to work within a very short film.
Surely that will show in the finished product as well in some way, shape or form.
I'm sure people could slip them through, and it's like, we're not going to take every script and run it back through through like, I don't know, my kids' schools have this software that can point out if people if you're using a chat GPT or whatever. Yeah. But I just feel like you're doing a disservice to yourself ultimately, and so you may as well just hang up everything if that's the way you want it. That's the one.
That does sort of negate the whole purpose of the entire thing. So that's great. You basically 7:00 on the Friday, and there is no. I've been there. I've watched these teams sprint into whether it's a hall in Ponsonby or wherever it might be, or across the country now, and that's it. You've got to get it done by 7, or your entire weekend was a waste of time.
Yeah, it's a lot safer now. It used to be people coming in on motorbikes into buildings, throwing tapes, having backup tapes waiting on standby. Yeah, it was a complete madhouse, and honestly, I was always in fear on the Sunday night of people, having car accidents on the way to the finish line. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, of course.
So there is an ability to finish online, which is a lot safer for a lot of folks, especially for when we started moving out into all the regions. Originally it was just a couple of cities, and then it just kept expanding and expanding, and we. It just felt like we weren't seeing full coverage of talent. And so, which can come from anywhere. And especially last year, we had people who had never, ever, they didn't even know what 48 Hours was, right? And so Team Nuggets, which just came out of nowhere, won the whole shebang. Peter Jackson's favourite short of the whole event, and wowed all the judges. And so it was like, that's the heart of the comp in a way, like that you can come from nowhere, have no understanding of the industry at all, and suddenly you have just absorbed a lot overnight. And those they've done some great promos for us, that team, about how much it meant to them to pull it off last year.
How does that feel? That is the ultimate for you. I know it is. Your raison d'etre, but seeing something like that happen in front of your very eyes, it must be pretty satisfying and nourishing to see storytellers come out that way.
Yeah, and I've met so many people through this comp over the years. It's crazy, and just to keep tabs on where everyone's coming from. I'm working with someone that came through the comp on a project that we sort of connected after a long period of time, but that the heart of it was from 48, and that's happened to a lot of people, not just myself and the other organisers. It's everyone involved in the comp has connected. There's been teams that have connected and formed businesses together. There's been collaborators, writers and directors who have met and come out with feature films and TV series, and it's just enormous. And it's kind of why the Film Commission backs the project, because of that proof of that it does actually deliver.
It's interesting you say you can now file online. I've had terrifying moments in an edit booth at 1 minute to 6 waiting for my story to be rendered.
Yeah, the rendering.
Oh my God, the rendering horror and just the
spinning wheel of death. We had that. That was a huge thing in the early years. Was people running with laptops with the wheel spinning.
Oh, it's making my skin crawl. That makes me feel so stressed.
I know. I mean, it sounds like I'm a sadist, but I love seeing that.
That does sound like you're a sadist.
Yeah. I mean, when Jackie Brown cried the very first year, I felt like we'd achieved something incredible.
How dare you make Jackie Brown cry? 22 years, you said, 44 or so. Now you've got over 500 teams, pretty standard, entering this festival. That sounds not unwieldy, but just in terms of the management. I mean, you kindly had me on the judging panel in Auckland for a couple of years, and I mean, that was a whole night of chaos just trying to, between, 8 of us in your lounge arguing about what we wanted. So imagine what it's like just bringing all of those films together. Out of the 500 teams, what's sort of your average finisher that crosses the finishing line?
In what respect?
And getting the films in on time.
I think, it's varied. It's actually quite high these days, just because of, the efficiency of digital filmmaking now, and that everyone is kind of a lot more savvy.
Yeah.
You're talking about whole generations that have been raised, cutting things on their iPhone and,
My
and
12-year-old's
creating content.
been cat cutting for the last year.
Exactly, right? And they understand the principles of all this stuff, whereas it would be like a foreign language back in the very early days of this.
Yeah.
So there was a big steep learning curve, but now it's kind of just ingrained in them. And the fact that a lot of the schools, a lot of the media teachers are 100% behind this, they kind of really get their students involved. We've got one school, I think, that's got 12 teams entered this year or something crazy.
So when did schools start to get into this? Because this is they've
come in a big way over it's really, they've become a big part of it probably in the last decade, but really picked it up in the last 5, like really huge numbers.
Yeah. So 2 for 1, is it?
Because we lost the people who were quite established in the industry, used to do it a lot, and so we had a lot of production houses and people in the ad world and things joining in. So we've kind of those guys have sort of, they've aged out. I'm the only one. on the
Still standing.
the only old crusty in there. But there are some people who come back in as well, and that's always a nice surprise to see some of the OGs turn up. But just watching people like. I mean, I don't want to go down a Rolodex because there's so many. Yeah. But, it's very Auckland-centric as well from my POV because I've been based. But, people like Muck Putty, seeing them, They
were just
doing...
in the Ngā Whanaunga, and their film, honestly, George, it's just like how the gift of animating something and making you feel the way you feel. Lots of them over the years. They're incredible what they do now.
Yeah, and then animation's always been kind of a cool, fun part of the comp, and that's been growing every year. The ability to do that now, but we've got Liam, who's incredible, and he's done that hand drawn style, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
and the package that people win is substantial enough. It's the equivalent of getting what the old NZFC shorts were, basically the package. That's a real kickstart for people because trying to raise 80,000 or whatever on your own is hard.
Yeah, it is.
So it's and it puts you in the spotlight a little bit.
Of course,
if you have something. Most of these things don't work. On the festival circuit outside of this sort of like bubble that we operate in, but some do, which was, the craziest thing. I remember the Down Low concept when they won. Watching that with an audience internationally was because it's very rare that I'm going to be in a place where I can see a 48 short in a festival over there. But it happened a couple of times, and just seeing it with an audience and seeing when it plays to a cold that aren't in that bubble was just wild, So it's like it can happen, and that's why we always try to like explain to people that think about the audience globally as well, right? It's like it's fun to make your friends laugh and everything, but ultimately you want something that connects to everybody if you can. And so I always try to drive that home if I can.
So I'd be one of these people that would make what I thought was a story I wanted to tell, and it sucked in 48 hours of shooting it, and then I would take it and I would do it. Yeah. Properly, when I say properly, giving it enough time. Does that happen? Are these stories locked and that's done and dusted?
It's very hard to make something, especially if you're dealing with drama. It's not exactly the most ideal sort of boot camp to produce those types of shorts. So comedy is always like a big through line through the comp, just because it's very accessible. It's like it comes from out of the chaos, and it's fun to do that stuff and trying to make people laugh. When the odd serious one comes through, it's kind of like a revelation. It's like, oh my God, this is just, it feels like a breath of fresh air, but it is one of the hardest things to pull off. And people have done it over the year. I wish there was more, and I also wish there was more kind of experimental and pushing the boundaries of things in terms of messing around, deconstructing the narrative. But sometimes you're talking to people that's their first thing, right? So it's a bit tough to like expect the highest echelon to come out of it. But just to even make something is a massive achievement. Honestly, just make it, but also make it under the duress of the whole competition deadlines.
You've made a very good point as well. We've already discussed it, but over 22 years, I don't think you'll ever have seen such a revolution in tech. I mean, these kids and adults can run around with an iPhone and make a beautiful film with that. So how have you seen that kind of fundamentally change how people have been making their shorts over the years?
Well, we haven't gone vertical yet.
No, don't do that. But, I mean, that's where it's going.
But that's a lot of people.
Because how long are they? 1 to 5?
Yeah. Yeah. And it used to, I think in the old days, the very early days, we might have been up to 8 minutes at one stage. And that's it feels long for the wrong short. But
do you get disqualified if you're too long?
Yeah, I mean, there's like hardline rules. So you can't handle. I mean, we had people handing in 12-minute shorts originally, and just and I don't think we picked them up until they were screening on the Civic screen. Sometimes
this feels like it's going
feels
for
like
a while.
It's quite long. No, it's definitely it's just made it so much more accessible. It feels like it can be done with reduced numbers now. In the crazy early days, we had teams literally of 50, which seems bonkers now.
It does seem bonkers.
But that's the ability for people to be multitasking, but also just to understand a lot more areas. You can reduce the numbers involved, but if you've got a huge group of friends, you want everyone to have fun on the day. So why
someone
not
needs to do catering.
Yeah. But it also like hones into the fact that one of the most essential things is having someone lead, right? Whether it's, you have a director's vision, but you also need someone to organise everything. Usually thrown to the producer to get everything sorted leading up, which is just getting prepped for the whole thing, but making sure everything follows according to whatever plan you've got.
All right.
And so it kind of shines a light on that role that we it felt neglected. We were kind of like very heavily as an industry focused on writer-directed geniuses, like auteurs. But the reality is, like, without producers, it's a thankless task, to be honest. And it's a grind. And 48 kind of, you get the full understanding within a very short period of time of how hard it is. But we've had some superstars come out of the comp who had the groundwork laid for them.
It's coming up any minute this coming weekend. You have any top tips that you can give to our teams?
Keep it simple, stupid. That rule applies right across the board. Even though I was just asking for aim for the highest echelon.
Yes, hello, auteur. We want War and Peace.
So, sometimes you can overcomplicate matters by trying to do something too complex. Mm-hmm. Writing, scripts that are obviously just you're going to end up cutting so much to fit within the time, your duration. So. Yeah, sometimes it's better to concern yourself with the execution of a simple idea, of just a simple story well told.
Yeah.
And that sounds easy, but it's not. And you can get bogged down with a lot of areas. So Friday night is critical, making sure that whatever you've written can be achieved in the time that you have, and don't give yourself even more hurdles than we're supplying.
Okay, that's excellent advice. For me, I have very strong kind of recollections of what might have been a stunning film with the most appalling sound. So I want to get a bit of a sense of how important sound is.
It's critical. I mean, you can hide behind a really ugly-looking film by saying it was an aesthetic choice, but it's very hard to say, no, I chose to have crap sound that you can't actually understand. Mm-hmm. So, if you don't understand how sound is an important component, it's time to do it now.
Yeah.
You've only got a couple of days. But, just and test your pipeline. Test how everything is how you're going to cut it, how you're going to put it together, how you're going to export it, and have a play with that of just randomly shooting something, chopping it up, making sure the sound works continuously through your pipeline is just going to save those horror shows that we see now and then. Less so these in modern times than the prehistoric era of mini DV and the nightmares that we had with that. But sound, as with all filmmaking, is super crucial. It's crucial,
isn't it? Obviously, Auckland is a huge one, Wellington, all the big cities. But, in 22 years, it's the festival is now in all the little corners. How many different places across the country, approximately?
It's not even places now, because we've kind of we've changed the format again this year. We tried to have events in every single region, well, up to not every single region, but a lot. And it was unwieldy because you have to have whole management teams in every single of these places. And there have been so many people who have helped us out in the regions, but we kind of wanted to reach everyone from Kataia down to the Catlins, and so the idea is that you can shoot it anywhere in New Zealand and enter the comp and play with everyone, and so it's opened it up a little bit. It's more online. It hasn't gone fully online. There's still live components, live screenings, but for everyone in those tiny pockets that don't have access to the nearest sort of event, they can just play online and be part of the whole community.
And isn't that amazing? We see it everywhere, obviously, but the ability to be able to do that means we're getting more of those stories from far more places.
Yeah, which has always been I've found that over the years of just people who didn't approach me because whether they'd see me yabbering on about something. The Incredibly Strange was a big gateway for people, but they didn't. They wanted to make genre films or whatever, but they didn't actually know that the things like the Film Commission existed.
Yeah.
So so it's those people that 48 through the schools program who aren't sort of savvy with the industry connections.
Yeah.
We kind of connect those dots.
How's this year looking? How many teams do you think you got coming in, and how's the vibe?
Well,
how's
there's
the buzz?
always a last minute rush. We had the early bird is when we get a huge chunk because it saves a lot of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't know. I mean, hopefully we will match last year. It feels like it's plateaued to around that over 500 number, which is
it's a pretty good plateau.
Which is huge.
It's a huge number of teams.
There was. I think that we had a peak way back a long time ago. I think it was like maybe 880, but that was like one crazy year back in the mid 2010s or whatever.
Yeah.
But now it feels like it's in a comfortable, manageable sort of amount.
And you got PJ back with his wild card, Peter Jackson's wild card. Yeah. I mean, that's a big draw card.
I think it's PJ and Fran. Fran's a big
excellent
secret hidden, quiet component of all that side of things. But yeah, he's if people don't believe it, he takes it very seriously. His role in 48, he's been there for a long time and been so supportive. But yeah, he gets angry if his pick doesn't win. Like he's.
You have to make that phone call to him.
I wish I was on speed dial with PJ, but no, he takes it seriously. He follows teams. He keeps tabs on. He always asks me about certain teams when I did catch up with him, what they're up to, things like that. Which it was nice to fill him in on where they are.
Of course. I mean, he knows where it all kicked off for him, and I guess this is kind of dialing into that. It's so interesting, actually. I was at a conference recently. There was a phenomenal speaker on AI, Frances Valentine, and she talked about the fact that more and more adults need to embrace play in order to not just to learn, but also to get better at whatever it is they've been doing for years. And hearing you talk earlier on in the pod about that notion of industry, old school coming in and for a weekend just playing, just letting go, that feels really...
It's part of life.
Yeah,
right. So,
that's right.
All the mental health practitioners say it's a huge part of getting that balance. If you don't have any of it in your life, it could be a bit of a slog, at times. So life throws enough pressures at you, and I feel like play is the great release valve for people, and they should
And this is
be a little bit more silly in your life.
Be a little bit more silly, Ant.
Yeah,
that's great advice. And this, I mean, we call it silly, but it is the anarchic nature of just mucking in and doing this, but with your passions and with your skills.
Yeah, you can be super serious and silly.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be like some of the best films. They don't have to be a slog. Just because it's the hardest thing on earth. There's exceptions to the rule, obviously, but I feel you can have a joyous spirit behind the camera and then shooting something that's incredibly serious and earnest, and it's not mutually exclusive at all in these scenarios.
So I've finished shooting my film. I haven't slept for at least 48 hours. I go into a coma and I wake up a week later, almost in an alternate universe. But what's next for the filmmakers after that? Once they've made the film, they've made it in on time, what's next?
What's next is to wait the heats.
Yep.
The judging, and there's two layers of judging. There's the local judges, and then we've got some internationals as well for the grand final. Mm-hmm. So you get through the heats, win that, get into the short list, and then make it to the grand final. And if you make it to the grand final, then there's a chance of winning the big prize.
How many generally make the grand final?
It varies. We haven't worked out the exact number, but it's everywhere from probably 12 around that. We've had up to 15 at times.
Yeah.
And then the grand prize. Then there's a runner-up prize and a second runner-up prize. But the grand prize pulls in about $80,000 worth of cash and services with the kind Wingnut puts in cash, the Film Commission puts in cash.
Love it.
And then post-production services and equipment rental. And it's all on the website, Kate. It's all
on the website, people. Jump onto the 48 Hour, the Vista Foundation 48 Hour website, which is bloody fantastic, by the way, that web. It's full of everything you need, every little detail, but also lots of inspiration.
Lots of information about...
and the screening room. I mean, the opportunity to be able to see what people have done in the past, what works, what doesn't work. So now's the time leading up to do your prep, to have a look, to see what works and what doesn't work, and if it will marry in with your ideas. $80,000, it's absolutely worth it on just about every level. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you kind of have a proudest moment? I know you don't like singling out people, but is there kind of, it could be just sitting exhausted at 8 o'clock on a Sunday and just looking at all these teams, or sitting down with the films. I mean, do you get a full understanding of this contribution that you've helped?
I mean, I'd just be playing favourites, obviously, I think. But it's just, there's too many, and that's the best thing, right? I've got too many stories about being proud of seeing people come out of it. Refer to it as there's just a warmth about it from people. Obviously, there's a few horror stories over the years. People are like, I'm never going to do this bloody thing again. But generally, there's such goodwill involved with the whole thing. It's very rare to hear anyone have a bitch about it. Mostly, it's really fond memories. I run into people all the time, and they did it. I knew them, and now their kids are doing it. It's, there's a legacy to it now, and I feel really proud of that.
You should be. That feels like just the perfect end of a podcast, doesn't it?
Yes.
I think
Tears
it
in
is.
your eyes, Kate.
I know. I'm very emotional these days. You know me. Ant Timpson, film head and all-round legend. What a pleasure it's been. Thanks for joining us on the pod.
Thank you so much for having me.
What a fascinating insight into the phenomenal impact and legacy of the 48-hour film comp. Ngā mihi nui to Ant Timpson, and thank you for joining us on Lights, Camera, Kōrero.